based on real events. Eva, the small infant, was peacefully sleeping next to her parents Tommy and Susan. The morning began quietly, soft rays of sunlight gently filtered into the room, and the baby's quiet breathing filled the atmosphere with warmth and comfort. Tommy and Susan lay in bed, holding each other, enjoying the rare moments of peace. "Oh, Eva's awake already," Tommy said with a smile, glancing at their daughter, who had started to stir slightly. "Yes, early bird," Susan replied, leaning down to gently kiss the little forehead. "Want us to go to the nursery while you sleep a bit more?" "No, I like it when you're both near me," Tommy answered tenderly. He stretched, slightly lifting the blanket to look at their daughter. Susan smiled, her eyes shining with happiness. "I've never been this happy," she said softly, her voice full of love and warmth. "Me neither," Tommy replied, gently stroking her hair. "I'm so happy I could get up and make breakfast for you both." But at that moment, his face changed, the expression becoming worried. He propped himself up and suddenly looked down sharply. "What's this? Where are the shards from?" Tommy said in surprise, noticing something unusual under the blanket. Susan also sat up and froze when she saw that Tommy's legs were covered in blood, and small glass shards were scattered around. "Tommy! Your legs!" she exclaimed, her voice trembling with anxiety. She quickly sat up, trying to figure out where the shards came from and how it happened. Tommy carefully lifted the blanket to examine the wounds. Blood was slowly dripping down his legs, and the glass shards were embedded in his skin. "Damn! How did this happen?" he whispered, looking at his legs in shock and pain. Susan darted to the first aid kit, her hands trembling, but she tried to stay calm for Tommy and little Eva. The peaceful morning was suddenly replaced by worry and confusion. Tommy had never believed in magic or the supernatural, preferring to solve problems with reason and logic. However, the strange and frightening events that had been happening in his house forced him to seek help in a place he never expected, at a fortune teller's. He came with doubt, but he knew there was no other choice. "I don't even know where to start," Tommy began, lowering his gaze. "Honestly, I don't believe in magic at all. But I can't explain what's happening in my house." The fortune teller looked at him carefully, not interrupting. "I'm a Scorpio, born in the year of the dragon. According to my horoscope, I've always considered myself strong and determined. But what's happening now is throwing me off track. Something strange keeps appearing in my food. It's driving me crazy." "What exactly?" the fortune teller asked calmly. "Glass," Tommy sighed. "I keep finding shards in my food." My wife, Susan, is also in shock. She insists that it's impossible for glass to appear by accident. I even set up a camera in the kitchen, watched every step, but saw nothing suspicious. And the glass keeps showing up. "Did you bring the shards with you?" the fortune teller asked, squinting. Tommy nodded and handed her a small packet. The fortune teller took it and closed her eyes for a moment. "I see that you took something that doesn't belong to you. By doing so, you've broken someone else's life," she said quietly. "Whose life?" Tommy frowned. "I didn't wish harm on anyone." "I can't see his face," the fortune teller replied, shaking her head. "But I see that he is performing a ritual to get back at you. That's why the shards keep appearing in your food. If you don't stop this ritual, soon you won't be able to eat at all and will starve to death." "So what do I do?" Tommy asked desperately. "Return what you took," the fortune teller answered, looking him directly in the eyes. "Even if you don't remember what it is, think about who you might have hurt." Tommy shook his head. "I'm not a thief. I haven't taken anything that isn't mine," he said, but there was no longer any confidence in his voice. The fortune teller handed him an old, yellowed piece of paper. Take this spell. Read it over the shards and bury them in the ground. The one performing the ritual will be drawn to you. Return to him what you took, and the ritual will stop. Then the shards will disappear from your life. Tommy took the paper, feeling a mixed sense of fear and hope growing inside him. He wasn't sure he believed in magic, but he knew one thing: he needed to get his life back on track, no matter the cost. After visiting the fortune teller and receiving her instructions, Tommy was determined to get rid of the problem with the shards in his food. He knew that soon he would have to perform the ritual, but for now, he tried to stay calm for his family. With his wife Susan and daughter Eva, he went to the playground to distract himself and spend some time with his loved ones. "Tommy, just be careful, please," Susan asked, watching her husband help Eva swing on the swings. "It's fine, don't worry," Tommy replied, trying not to show his tension. Tommy wanted to get rid of the mysterious shards in his food as quickly as possible. He impatiently awaited the night to perform the ritual, read the spell over the shards, and bury them as the fortune teller had advised. Right now, he was trying to focus on playing with Eva, but the anxiety wouldn't leave him. "Don't swing her too hard," Susan asked again, clearly concerned for their daughter. "It's fine, Susan," Tommy said softly. "Don't worry so much, everything's under control." "I'm just so afraid something might happen to her," Susan sighed, not taking her eyes off Eva. "You just need to rest a bit," Tommy said, looking at his wife with sympathy. "Maybe we could hire a nanny. It would help you relax." "No," Susan sharply disagreed. "A stranger will never take care of Eva the way I do." "But we have cameras all over the apartment," Tommy tried to persuade her. "You could go for a manicure or something and still keep an eye on things. Everything will be fine." Susan paused for a moment, thinking about his words, but the anxiety still didn't let her go. Tommy understood her fears, as he had his own worries, but he hoped that soon all of this would be behind them, and their life would return to being calm and safe. Waiting for nightfall, Tommy read the spell over the shards and drove far away from home to bury them and complete the ritual, just as the fortune teller had advised. He felt that with this action, he was drawing in the person performing the ritual, hoping to deal with this mystical threat once and for all. The next morning, Tommy went to work, trying to act as usual. "Tommy, or Mr. Garcia, as you prefer," a familiar voice said. "What are you doing here?" Suddenly, in the office, he ran into Nicholas, his former friend with whom he had cut ties a long time ago. Seeing him, Tommy immediately thought that Nicholas had been drawn in by magic. It was clear that there was something unresolved between them, something Tommy needed to make right. Tommy was sitting in his office when there was a knock at the door. His subordinate, Daniel, walked in and cautiously spoke. "Tommy, what's going on?" "Listen, when you text me in all caps, it feels like you're yelling at me. And right now, I'm going to yell at you," Tommy snapped. "What the hell were you thinking hiring Rodriguez? The new developer? What's wrong with him?" Daniel asked, confused. "Never mind," Tommy cut him off. "He shouldn't be working here. Fire him today. We have a contract for a 1-month probation period. By law I can't just fire him," Daniel tried to explain. "Find a way around the law," Tommy sharply interrupted him. "What, have you never fired anyone without cause? Listen, our reputation is already bad because of employee turnover. Let's wait a month, and then I'll fire him," Daniel suggested, trying to calm his boss. "Fine," Tommy reluctantly agreed. "But make sure he's gone in a month." "Okay. Okay," Daniel nodded. "And call Henry in for me," Tommy nodded, sinking back into his thoughts. Tommy had no doubt that Nicholas was the one performing the ritual and trying to harm him. He needed to act quickly and decisively to protect himself and his family. When Henry entered the office, Tommy looked at him with cold determination. Good morning. For some, it's a good morning, and for others, not so much, but I've got a job for you. What job? Henry asked, curious. We need to take care of one person as soon as possible, Tommy said coldly. Do it. It will be done, Henry answered shortly, not asking any more questions. Send me all the info on him. Tommy knew that this was his only chance to get his life back on track and get rid of the threat looming over him and his family. Tommy returned home late in the evening, still tense after a tough day at work and the decisions he had yet to make. He tried to set aside his worries and focus all his attention on his family. Hey, sweetheart, Susan greeted him with a smile. Hey, Tommy replied, walking up to her and kissing her on the cheek. How did Eva behave today? Great, Susan said. I found an amazing nanny. She streams live from their walks through an app. So I know everything that's going on. I'm so glad, Tommy nodded, genuinely happy. I've always said you need to relax and unwind a bit. You were right, life with a nanny is like magic. I got everything done today: spa, fitness, and shopping with the girls, Susan smiled. That's great, Tommy said. The main thing is that you're calm and happy. By the way, I almost finished making your favorite pasta, Susan added, heading toward the kitchen. Finally, some good news for today, Tommy sighed, sitting down in a chair. What happened? Problems at work? Susan asked, looking at him with concern. Problems is an understatement, Tommy frowned. Daniel hired Nicholas Rodriguez. Rodriguez? Susan was surprised. Tommy, he's definitely trying to set you up. I'm sure of it. Yeah, I think so too. He didn't show up here for no reason, Tommy agreed. He's definitely going to try to take half the company from you. I remember how he used to push his rights, Susan said, shaking her head. Honestly, half the company is already his, if you want to get technical. We started together, invested money together, Tommy sighed. Come on. The company is registered in your name, right? So it's yours. Nicholas is the one to blame for not having citizenship, Susan said confidently. Still, I don't feel right about it. Maybe I really did wrong by him, Tommy said thoughtfully. You did the right thing, Susan said firmly. And the fact that your company is one of the leaders in the market is all thanks to you. Nicholas has nothing to do with it. Don't even think about giving him anything. At that moment, Tommy fell silent, his gaze dropping to the plate in front of Eva. Oh, crap. He suddenly exclaimed, noticing something. What's wrong? Susan asked, looking at him with concern. Wait, don't eat. Tommy quickly stood up, seeing a small shard in Susan's plate. Tommy felt his heart drop to his feet. This meant the threat was still near, and they would have to keep fighting it. Tommy returned to the fortune teller, feeling desperate and powerless. I don't understand what's going on, he began, sighing heavily. Now my wife can't eat either. There are shards in her food too. The fortune teller looked at him carefully and asked, Did you perform the ritual I gave you? Of course, Tommy confirmed. But after that, my former friend appeared at my company. Did you take something from him? The fortune teller asked, narrowing her eyes. Well, in a way, yes, Tommy admitted. We started the business together, but he had problems with his documents, so everything was registered under my name. And you took his share in the company for yourself? The fortune teller asked, looking at him intently. Kind of, Tommy nodded. But then my friend had an accident, and he died. It's impossible to return his share now. What should I do? Give me some ritual to get rid of these shards. The fortune teller extended her hand and said, Stretch out your hands. Truly show me, don't hide anything. Tommy stretched out his hands, and the fortune teller noticed blood on his palms. "This is blood," she said quietly, looking at him suspiciously. "You lied to me. What happened to your friend was no accident. You wanted to kill him. Is that true?" Tommy closed his eyes and nodded. "Yes." The fortune teller sighed and said, "Luckily for you, your friend is still alive, or I wouldn't be helping you. I see that your assistant only beat him, but didn't kill him. For what you've done, you will still face consequences, but your wife has nothing to do with this. I'll help you only to save her. Otherwise, she will die from this ritual too. What should I do? How can I save her and myself?" Tommy asked desperately. "You must immediately return what you took from another," the fortune teller said sternly. "Otherwise, both you and your wife will die. I have to give my friend half of the company." Tommy asked for clarification. "What's his name?" the fortune teller asked. "Nicholas," Tommy replied. "I can't see who exactly you need to give it to," the fortune teller shook her head. "The one performing the ritual has too strong an aura, it prevents me from seeing him. But I see that this person carries a shard on his chest. You will be able to find him by this shard." "How can someone wear a shard on their chest? Is that even safe?" Tommy asked in surprise. "The shard is kept in a linen pouch," the fortune teller explained. "You'll recognize him by the pouch." Early in the morning, Susan was awoken by a nightmare. She screamed and jumped out of bed, causing Tommy to wake up in alarm. "Tommy, Tommy, Tommy, where are the keys?" "The car keys. We forgot Eva. We got the groceries, but we forgot Eva," Susan cried, trying to get out of bed. "Susan, Susan, calm down," Tommy grabbed her shoulders and held her tightly. "Eva is asleep in her crib. It was just a bad dream. Everything's fine, you hear me?" Susan slowly regained her composure, breathing heavily, then turned and clung to Tommy. "Eva. Eva, darling," she whispered quietly, still feeling the remnants of fear. Tommy carefully got out of bed and looked at the clock. "Since we're both awake, I'll go start breakfast," he said, trying to distract Susan. After a while, the nanny entered the apartment, quietly opening the door with the keys. "Hello," she said with a smile. "You're Eva's nanny, right?" Tommy asked as he stepped into the kitchen. "Yes," she answered, a little embarrassed. "Susan gave me the keys, and I decided to come early to help with breakfast. I know how it is with kids always on the go." "That's very sweet of you," Tommy said, giving her an assessing look. "Thank you. I thought I'd make some coffee, is that okay?" the nanny asked, continuing to busy herself in the kitchen. "Of course, I'm fine with that," Tommy smiled and, turning around, poured himself a glass of water. He raised the glass, about to take a sip, but froze. The water was cloudy, and at the bottom, there were small shards of glass. "Bastards," Tommy muttered, his voice shaking with anger. "Is something wrong?" the nanny asked, looking at him with concern. "No, everything's fine," Tommy replied, struggling to keep his voice steady as he put the glass back on the table. He knew one thing for sure, the ritual was working, and they were all in mortal danger. To save his family, Tommy decided that he could no longer delay. He had to return what he took before it was too late. Tommy arrived at the hospital where Nicholas was being treated and cautiously entered his room. "Hey, Nicholas," Tommy said, smiling. "I brought you some fruit." "Poisoned?" Nicholas looked at him with a smirk. "What, you think I didn't realize your guy beat me up?" "Nicholas, come on. We've had our issues, but I'm not capable of that," Tommy replied, trying to stay as calm as possible. "So, you've only learned how to take other people's success, huh? But not how to kill? No. You're not progressing much, are you?" Nicholas sneered bitterly. Nicholas, I heard you were in the hospital and just wanted to visit, Tommy sighed. And look, I know I was wrong with you. I want to return your half of the company. Nicholas froze, staring at him. What? Are you serious? Absolutely, Tommy nodded. Just please, stop conducting that ritual. Ritual? What ritual? Nicholas asked, frowning in confusion. Please, unbutton your shirt, Tommy asked, feeling that the time had come. I don't really understand what you're talking about right now, Nicholas frowned but complied. You've got shards, I know. Nicholas stepped back, quickly buttoning up his shirt. Oh. Men. Men. He shouted, calling to the nurses who were walking by. Let go of me, I'll call security. Tommy felt a chill run through his body. He wasn't completely sure that Nicholas was the one performing the ritual, but hunger and thirst gnawed at him. To save himself and his family, he made a decision. Nicholas, I'm serious. Take your half of the company, he said firmly, lowering his head. I can't live like this anymore. Nicholas looked at him, surprised and puzzled. Are you really willing to do this? He asked quietly. Yes, Tommy replied, looking up at him. Just take your share and stop the ritual. Nicholas was silent for a while, then slowly nodded, unsure of what to say. He didn't expect this turn of events, but Tommy was willing to do anything to rid himself of the terrifying threat hanging over him. Tommy sat at the table, a stack of documents in front of him. He carefully went over the papers, then signed the last page and handed them to Daniel. Here are the documents, I've signed everything. Put the stamp on and send them to Nicholas Rodriguez, he's in the hospital right now, Nicholas said, leaning back in his chair, exhausted. Daniel frowned as he took the papers in his hands. Tommy, you're giving him 50% of the company. You were just about to fire him, Daniel said, his voice filled with disbelief. Things have changed, Daniel, Tommy replied, not lifting his eyes. You've lost it if you're doing this, Daniel shook his head. I gave an order, not asked for a discussion, Tommy cut him off sharply, his voice cracking from tension. Suddenly, Tommy's face turned pale, his eyes closed, and he collapsed to the floor, losing consciousness. Tommy! Daniel exclaimed, rushing to him. Get those documents to Rodriguez immediately, Daniel growled, trying to revive Tommy. Okay. Right away, Daniel nodded, quickly grabbing the papers and heading for the door. As Daniel left the office, he pulled out his phone and made a call. Hello. Honey, ordered dinner from our favorite restaurant. I'll be home in an hour, he said, trying to keep his voice steady before hanging up and continuing with his task. That evening, Tommy and Susan ordered food from their favorite restaurant, hoping for a peaceful dinner. The food looked delicious, and Susan set the table, trying to create a cozy atmosphere. Here, darling, your favorite dishes, Susan said with a smile, though there was still a trace of worry in her voice. Tommy hungrily dove into the food, as if he hadn't eaten in days. He ate so fast that Susan looked at him with concern. Tommy, wait, eat slower, she said, frowning. You could choke. Tommy didn't respond. His hands were trembling as he piled more food onto his plate. He couldn't stop, as if something was pushing him to keep going. Tommy, please stop, Susan repeated, now clearly frightened. What's happening to you? At that moment, Tommy suddenly stopped. His face contorted in pain. He grabbed a napkin and quickly spit out what he had just eaten. Susan gasped in horror as she saw shards of glass in the napkin, along with blood. Oh, God! She whispered, feeling a wave of fear wash over her. Tommy, it's happening again. The shards. Tommy was breathing heavily, trying not to look at the napkin. I need to fix this, Susan, he exhaled, barely holding back the tremble in his voice. I can't go on like this. Susan, frightened and helpless, looked at her husband, her eyes filling with tears. She didn't know how to help him, but one thing was clear: the situation was becoming increasingly dangerous, and they needed to do something urgently to stop this nightmare. Late in the evening, Tommy went into Eva's room to check on her while she slept. The nanny was there, quietly adjusting the blanket on the little girl's crib. Was she crying? The baby got scared, the nanny said, giving Tommy a reproachful look. Shh, 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 Tommy replied, trying to calm Eva, who seemed genuinely unsettled. It's okay, she'll calm down now, the nanny added, gently patting the girl's head. Tommy looked at the nanny closely. Something about her behavior was raising suspicion, and he couldn't shake the feeling. Then his gaze fell on something around her neck. A small linen pouch was hanging from a string. The words of the fortune teller flashed in his mind: the one who performs the ritual wears a shard in a linen pouch. What's that? Tommy asked sharply, pointing at the pouch. It's just a charm, the nanny stammered, but her eyes darted around, as if she was hiding something. Without thinking, Tommy reached out and yanked the pouch from her neck. The nanny screamed, trying to stop him, but he already had the pouch in his hand, feeling the cold, sharp edges under his fingers. It's a shard, Tommy whispered, looking at the pouch. His heart started racing, and he felt anger and fear mixing into a storm of emotions. Are you performing the ritual against us? The nanny tried to pull away, but Tommy grabbed her wrist, not letting her escape. You're going to tell me everything, he said quietly, but threateningly, staring into her eyes, which were now filled with terror. Suddenly, Tommy felt weak. His head started spinning, and his vision blurred. He tried to stay on his feet, but his strength was fading fast. Tommy, what's happening to you? The nanny screamed in fear, seeing his face go pale. Tommy let go of her hand, and the pouch slipped from his weakened fingers. He took a step back, but his legs gave way, and he collapsed to the floor, losing consciousness. The last thing he heard was the nanny's scream calling for help before everything went black. Tommy arrived at the fortune teller's, his face pale and exhaustion in his eyes. I just came from the hospital, he began, his voice trembling with anger and desperation. I was barely saved after eating glass. I did everything you told me, I returned what I took, but your ritual isn't working. The fortune teller looked at him with a serious gaze, then asked, did you find the one performing the ritual? Yes, Tommy answered, barely holding back his irritation. I found the person with a shard on their chest. It's the nanny of our daughter. Is she the one doing this ritual? The fortune teller nodded, her gaze remaining calm. Yes, it's her. The shard is a sign of the one performing the ritual. You took something from her that destroyed her life. Tommy frowned, his voice tinged with confusion. But I don't know her. We weren't acquainted before she came to work for us. What could I have taken from her? The fortune teller frowned, thinking for a moment, then answered. I don't know that. But I see that if you don't return what you took from her, you'll die in 3 days. Find out what it is and return it, or you won't survive. Tommy felt a cold chill creep into his heart. He had only 3 days to figure out this nightmare and find a way to save his life and his family. Tommy went to the nanny, trying to understand what exactly had happened. He handed her the linen pouch. Is this yours? Sorry I took it, he said, trying to sound calmer than he felt. The nanny took the pouch, her expression softening. Thank you, she replied quietly. Tommy watched her, still feeling like he didn't understand something. Tell me, why did you wear this around your neck? He asked. It's my talisman, the nanny replied, trying to avoid his gaze. This isn't a talisman, Tommy said, his voice growing colder. This is a curse directed at me, isn't it? The nanny sighed, lowering her gaze. Did you find out everything? I don't understand. What could I have taken from you? What do I need to return? Tommy asked, feeling his patience running thin. The nanny looked at him, pain in her eyes. My daughter, she said. I was an alcoholic, and child services took my child away. Then I got clean. When I was finally able to prove I was ready to get her back, it turned out my little girl was adopted. And now I can't get her back. But I found the money for a bribe to find out who adopted my child. Tommy felt a coldness rise inside him. Get out, he said quietly but firmly. You won't get Eva. The nanny gritted her teeth, her face contorting with anger. If you don't give me the child, you'll die. And so will your wife. And my little girl's name is Karen, don't forget that. Tommy stood there, feeling fear and rage battling in his soul. Everything had become even more complicated, and he understood that his family's lives were at stake. Late at night, when everything was cloaked in darkness and anxiety, Tommy and Susan found themselves in the living room. Susan sat, holding a cup of cold tea, while Tommy paced back and forth across the room. We shouldn't have bribed them back then, we shouldn't have adopted that girl, Tommy said, sighing heavily. We should have left her with her birth mother. Susan looked at him worriedly, her voice full of pain. What are you talking about, Tommy? She's our daughter. She's our family. No, Susan, Tommy replied coldly, stopping and looking at her. The real Eva we lost that horrible day. We left her in the car. And this girl, she just looks like our Eva. We committed a crime to adopt her. No, Susan whispered, her eyes filling with tears. Don't say that, don't you dare. It's not true. Shut up, Tommy. Tommy moved closer and knelt before her, his eyes full of pain. Our daughter is dead, Susan. The girl who is with us now is someone else's child. We have to return her to her mother, or we'll both die. Susan dropped the cup, and it fell to the floor with a dull thud. She shook her head, refusing to accept what she had just heard. This can't be true. She whispered, her voice trembling. I can't lose her again. Tommy hugged her, feeling his heart break with the weight of the pain. He was about to do the hardest thing he'd ever had to do, save his family, even if it meant losing everything they had long considered their own. The next morning, Tommy gathered all of Karen's belongings, carefully packed them into a bag, and placed the girl in her stroller. He knew this would be one of the hardest moments of his life, but there was no choice. He had to return the child to her real mother. Tommy and the nanny had arranged to meet in the park, on a bench in a quiet corner, away from prying eyes. Tommy arrived at the meeting spot and saw the nanny sitting on the bench, waiting for them. He stopped, took a deep breath, then walked closer, pushing the stroller ahead of him. Karen was happily chattering, unaware that her life was about to change forever. Here, Tommy said quietly, placing the stroller next to the nanny. All her things are here. If Karen needs anything, we're always ready to help. The nanny, looking at the daughter, nodded. Her eyes were full of emotion. We'll manage, she replied calmly, but there was gratitude and determination in her voice. Tommy leaned down to Karen, his heart tightening with pain. He stroked her head, looked into her big, trusting eyes, and whispered, I love you, little one. Thank you for everything. And know that I will always remember you. He straightened up, feeling tears well up in his eyes but holding them back. The nanny took the stroller and carefully pushed it down the park path. Tommy stood, watching them walk away until their silhouettes disappeared behind the trees. The farewell was over, and Tommy knew he had made the right choice. But the sense of loss would stay with him forever. After Karen was returned to her birth mother, the shards in Tommy and Susan's food no longer appeared. Their lives slowly began to return to normal, though the deep emptiness from the loss remained. Tommy and Susan knew they would never have children again, but they hoped to find a way to move forward and find peace. If you have doubts about the reliability of the nanny you hire for your child, there is a way to check her trustworthiness. Take 3 oat grains and say a spell over them: good shall grow, evil shall go away. Then plant the grains in the soil and water them. If the grains sprout, the nanny will be kind to your child. If not, it may be time to look for someone else.